All right, so we are live. So first off, before we get started, we have some things we're going to talk to Mike about. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I hit 1,000 subscribers today. If you guys know anything about YouTube, 1,000 subscribers is a huge milestone. It means that I'm going to be able to start making some money on YouTube, hopefully. And I know Michael's all about that. Yeah, oh, a little bit of money on YouTube. Eventually, anyways, they'll send me something. But I'm excited to have Michael. He decided he would jump in here with me today, and I really appreciate that from him. And so today, what I want to do is something, just spend some time talking to Mike, find out a little bit more about him, and hopefully you guys will enjoy this. It's something that you'll be like, oh man, that was pretty cool. And hopefully it's not Mike having to answer all the same questions he's answered 100 times before. So, Mike, I want to start with one. I've been watching your channel off and on. I certainly don't catch all of the videos, but I definitely try to catch quite a few because I think you're entertaining. But what I was wondering is, I know right now you do fish keeping, but it's a business for you. And that's where a lot of your focus is in your fish keeping. But how did you actually get started in fish keeping? Did you start as a business or was it something else for you?
So, like a lot of kids my age, I had the standard 10-gallon tank with the 10 neons, the Bella Shark, maybe a pleco and some mollies or what have you. And every month my dad and I would take everything out, take the tank over to the sink, wash it with soap, clean out the filter, put everything back together, put the fish in. They die a week later. We go to the fish store, buy more. We probably did that, I don't know, 6-7 times. And,
yeah.
When I was a kid, I had a fish tank essentially. And then as I got older, I bought a house, got married, and I had some discus for a little while, maybe about a year and a half. I had like 3 or 4 discus in a 55-gallon tank in my family room, and it was really cool. And when the discus died, I was really sad, and I put everything in the basement, and that was that. A couple years later, I was up late one night, and I actually saw, I don't know if I watched an aquarium co-op video once or Dustin from Dustin's Fish Tanks once, and I'm like, I could do that. I'm going to get a fish tank because, I was really cranky. I'm still am, but management issues. And long story short, I got a fish tank basically to relax. And then after watching more of Corey's videos, I'm like, wait a minute. I could build a rack out of cinder blocks and 2x4s. I could breed for profit and sell the fish to my local fish store to buy more fish tanks.
Yeah.
And so that's how it started.
So how long were you selling to your local fish store before you expanded to, okay, I'm going to sell and breed a lot more?
So my local fish store is cheap, very cheap, we'll just say. So I only sold to him like a few times because I wasn't getting money. I was just getting credit, and it was, pennies on the dollar. So then I started like expanding. I go to other fish stores with like a list. Hey, here's what I'm breeding. And every now and again, hey, do you have any of those mollies or plecos or whatever I was breeding at the time? And yeah, I go and I get a little cash. And then I started breeding really for local fish shows and stuff. Because that's if you don't have a website, that's usually how you make money is, and get rid of your fish. And so I did that for, a little while. And then I started with YouTube talking about, hey, if you want any fish, let me know. And then they would contact me, and it was a pain in the ass. And then I decided I'm just going to buckle down and, get a website and start selling that way. And that's what I did. And it's probably been about 3 years. No, because, I forget COVID was 2 years of our lives, and it's like a blur. It's probably been about 4 years really of selling for real.
And when you started selling, kind of for real, setting up is that when you started doing the importing then as well?
No, for a good 2.5 years, I was breeding. Everything I sold was bred in my fish room. But then, there comes a point where business takes off, and I couldn't make enough fish to sell. Like everything I could breed, I would sell, and I wouldn't sell them. I try not to sell them too small, right? And so then, I'd have like one strain of guppies to sell, and you're not going to make money that way. So I started like looking around and talking to friends in the business. You know, they would order guppies or whatever, and I would go in on it, so I didn't have to pay all the shipping and stuff. And that we did that for a little while, and then I found a importer and transshipper and started importing. I don't know, maybe once every 2 months, and then like once a month. And during COVID, I was doing it probably 2 times a month.
Yeah. Now, do you think that, like during COVID, you said, you know, with that picking up, do you think that was related to your YouTube channel growing quite a bit during COVID, or just the fact that more people were getting into the hobby because there's nothing else to do?
I think because most of the country was on lockdown, people were watching more YouTube for sure. And I'm a salesman. I was trying to sell my stuff on my YouTube videos. So they watch the video. Oh, I want some guppies. I want some plecos, and then they buy them.
So I guess have you seen that starting to slow down now that things are opening up again?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, YouTube has dropped off for all the creators that I talk to, and I talked to quite a few. I mean, some as much as 50%, which is huge numbers when they were growing, 4,000 or 5,000 subs a month, and now they're at 1,000 or 1,500 a month. That's a big number.
Yeah.
Drop. So, but yeah, business slowed down, and then of course we had the winter, so that doesn't help. And then, so business slowed down, and yeah, YouTube has slowed down for me as well.
Yeah, and I definitely look and I think, man, why didn't I start YouTube as soon as COVID started? Because I could have spent so much more time making videos. I was like a lot of people stuck in my house all the time, and I was kind of working, but not really, because what my job was is like I can't really do my job. So yeah, absolutely, I could see that being, obviously for me being a small channel and starting in the middle of COVID, I don't see that slowdown that I'm sure a lot of channels have experienced. But as far as like being a hobbyist, so you weren't really doing much as a hobbyist before you kind of jumped right into that business aspect of it.
Right. I had the discus tank, and then I stopped, and then it wasn't a business at first. It was a hobby that I was trying to support my hobby with.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to my next question, because right now I was mentioning to you earlier before we started the live stream that my son does sell guppies to his local fish store, and we're not trying to grow it into a business or anything, at least not at this point in our lives. But one of the things I got to be honest, I don't like selling to my local fish store, because I feel like, all right, now that I've told them I'm going to sell them guppies and I'm going to sell them plecos and I'm going to sell them shrimp, like I can't just get rid of those things now, and I have to keep them. So do you find, like, for you, obviously you enjoy guppies, but do you find sometimes that the business aspect of keeping fish is kind of taking away your enjoyment of the hobby?
No, because like I have one planted tank upstairs. I don't know if you've seen it. It's got some angels in it, whatever. And then I have Taco as a pet, and everything else is there. Dollar signs swimming in the tank. I enjoy the business, and I enjoy making money. So,
right. So it kind of makes up for that lack of maybe diversifying your fish.
Right.
So all right. Now today on Facebook there was a post, and I saw you comment on it, and I think I commented on it, and there was definitely some pieces there that I was like, we're going to talk to Mike about this one today. So there was a comment today, and I don't know which group it was because we were in several different groups together, where somebody basically said their fish do not belong in anything smaller than a 10-gallon ever, doesn't matter what type of fish. And so I was wondering from you, what's the smallest tank that you can keep fish in, and that you would tell people like, yeah, okay, you can do that?
I mean, so there's a difference between me keeping a certain kind of fish or amount of fish in a tank, because I have lots of experience. To newbies, certainly a 10-gallon tank is the smallest you should try, but telling someone they can't do something usually makes me want to try it. I once kept a betta for over a year in 32 ounces of water just to piss the betta people off. No other reason. That's it. But yeah, I mean, there are certainly plenty of fish you can keep in a 2.5 gallon or 3 gallon, whatever those small, nano tanks are nowadays. you can certainly keep some, a couple male guppies or shrimp or some of the celestial pearl danios. Are they the real small ones? Rasparas,
yep.
Right? You could certainly keep 4 or 5 of those in a well-planted tank and not worry about the nitrogen cycle. Like, that's the thing. I have a very good understanding of the cycle. I know how it works. I know what to look for. So for me, it's easy, right? I can keep 200 guppies in a 10-gallon tank and not worry about it.
Yeah.
Most everyday aquarists can't.
No, you're absolutely right, and I agree. It's one of those people out time. You'll see that question asked constantly. How many guppies can I keep in my 10-gallon tank? And my answer is, well, I can keep 100 in my 10-gallon tank, but you might only be able to keep 1, like, because it is one of those. Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. It's not your fault, but you don't, and so you don't know what to look for. You're not going to see the signs of a healthy or unhealthy tank, and yeah, absolutely.
And like, people don't understand. It's not like one size fits all question. How many X can I keep in this tank? Well, what are you feeding? How much are you feeding? How much water do you want to change? How often do you want to change your water? What's the filtration? How often are you going to clean it? Like, there's so many questions that have to be answered for me to give an educated guess. So, it's like, I hate when people ask those questions. I try not even to look at them, but when someone, they're so black and white about what you can do. Probably I was feeling a little cranky this morning too. So, I just gave her my answer.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those, this right here says it all. Too many people don't understand it's skill based.
Yeah,
they see it every day that is a problem. And that's the reality of it. Fish keeping is a skill. It's not, it's not just something that, oh yeah, anybody can do this. It really is. Yeah, start with easier things. And like the fact that you're able to keep discus alive for a year as one of your, first tanks, really keeping fit, that's pretty good in all honesty, because that's one of the fish that tends to be a little bit harder for people who are maybe not as familiar with the fish, fish keeping and what it takes to keep healthy fish. So, so now I have another question for you. And this question's a little bit different. Well, I shouldn't say the question's not different. The answer I'm looking for, I want to be a little bit different. So one of the things I see people ask all the time, trying to have a conversation, what fish do you think should not be in the hobby? And let's be honest, I think everybody could, answer like Aeropima. And if you don't know an Aeropima, it's like they get 6 feet long. Like, what? I can't fit that in my 75-gallon fish tank. And 99% of the world can't fit that in their fish tank. So instead of asking you that question, my question to you is, what fish do you think is in the hobby that you're just like, yeah, we don't really need that one. That's not a big deal. I have 2 in my mind that are probably, yeah, they're common. They're fine. You can keep them. No big deal. But just like, what's the point?
I mean, arowana to me comes to mind because those fish can jump. And most people don't like, they leave a space like this for the heater and all of a sudden their arowana they bought when it was this big for $40, is now this big and on the floor dead. So I would say that's probably one of them. But, a lot of people go, oh, combat pleco shouldn't be in the hobby. Well, if you have a ginormous pond or a big tank and you need something like that, why not? If you have, they shouldn't be sold to people hoping that they get a bigger tank.
Right.
But as far as I know, and I don't know that many fish, I'm not that smart. I'm just good looking. So like I know guppies and plecos and angelfish and some other fish, but I don't know that many fish. So I don't really have an answer for you, to be honest.
All right. Well,
has the husbandry skills, they should be able to keep whatever they want.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that there's, like, I'm not saying get Aeropima out of the hobby at all. Like, keep them in the hobby, but don't keep them at your fish store, local fish store. Make people order them, make them go looking, finding them, because they are fish that, most people can't keep, same thing with those arowana. Like, make it so that you actually have to go find it, not that you're walking through PetSmart and like, oh, that's a cool looking fish. But I actually had 2 that came to my mind as I was thinking about this question that, I just think like, we probably don't actually need that fish in the hobby. And one of the fish I saw recently you got was a betta. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
So I think bettas are really cool looking fish. I'm not a huge fan of them. They're a little boring to me, but they are a beautiful fish, no doubt. Except there's one betta that I'm like, why? What's the point? And that's those glow bettas. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
All right. They don't look nearly as good as a regular betta.
I'll tell you what the point is. To get kids in the hobby. That's the whole point of all those glowfish.
Oh, yeah.
To get kids in the hobby. And you know what? If it gets kids in the hobby and it's not harming the fish because they're not dyed, they're not painted, it's just genetics. And we genetically modify all kinds of things. Most dogs were bred for a certain reason, right?
Right.
All the guppies in my fish room, except for the mutts, were bred for their genetics. So to me, it's the same thing. If it gets kids in the hobby and it doesn't harm the fish, then
you're right. And I think for me, it's not so much that it's a problem there in the hobby. I just look at them and like, why'd they bother? You're right though. I mean, it does, if it appeals to kids, and it's probably better. Like most of those glow light tanks are pretty small, so it's probably better to have a betta in there than some of the other fish that they're selling.
Right.
But
now I'm not a fan of most of the glow fish. The glow bettas don't do anything for me, but I tell you what, glow tiger barbs are pretty badass looking.
I would agree with you there. I agree. Actually, if there was one that I was going to keep, that's exactly the one I would keep too, because I do think tiger barbs are a cool fish anyways. You can get them in a number of cool colors to begin with, but those glow light ones, they're definitely cool. The other fish though that I was thinking about that I'm like, it'd be okay if we didn't have those in the hobby is the neon tetra, which neon tetras are an awesome looking fish. I have some in my tank right here. But I thought like, okay, but if I had just as easy access to cardinal tetras instead of neon tetras, it looks almost the exact same, except the cardinal tetra has a little bit more color. And so I was kind of like, you know what? I'd rather have that cardinal tetra than the neon tetra. So those are the two that I came up with. I'm just like, yeah, you can just get rid of those out of the hobby. And I don't think anybody would be too upset by it as long as you can have access to the others.
Yeah, most people can't even tell the difference between a cardinal and a neon. So
yeah, just a little bit of red there. I was joking with a buddy of mine. His wife talks about how she doesn't like neon tetras, and he really wants some neon tetras. So I said to him, listen, don't get neons. If she doesn't like them, don't get them. Go get some cardinal tetras. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. Go get those tetras. What do those look like? And I'm like, don't worry about what they look like. He'll just go get those. Oh, look, there's this is who it was exactly. Mariah was the one that I was talking about there, but she did not want the neon tetras, and I appreciate that she's here on the channel. Mariah, did Travis get those neon tetras yet? That's the next question for you. Anyways, for you, you had a video today that came out, and you talked about the fact that you had a whole box of guppies that did not make it in shipping. Is that the biggest fish keeping disaster you have had, or has there been worse things that have happened for you as far as your fish keeping hobby?
As far as money goes?
Well, whether it's money or the way you felt about it, either way, I mean, that's up to you.
So, yeah, that's the biggest loss, because wholesale it's X amount, but then retail is quite a bit more. And with the winter, I'm pretty low on stock in the fish room, so yeah, it's a big problem for the business, but we'll get over it. I did lose a whole tank of super reds, which was pretty devastating to me, because I still don't know what happened. But as far as biggest loss, yeah, the 100 pairs of guppies or whatever it was more than 100 pairs, but
yeah.
But that it's a fact of the business. People think it's easy to I'll just import and I'll just flip them, and it's not that easy. And I see plenty of people that try and then fail miserably. Either they want to meet somewhere at some location to swap fish, or they sell on some weird app or something. I don't know. I have a business license. I pay my taxes. I have a website. People can leave, reviews. So.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that one. I definitely see a lot of people who are trying to do that, and I think that's for me. That's part of the reason I'm not interested in, breeding fish and trying to sell them. Like, yes, I'll breed fish and take them to my local fish store when I have too many, but I give them away as often as I sell them. Just because I'm trying to spread out what I have there, or I want to bring in something new. And if I have a full tank of stuff, you can't bring anything new in. So
what about selling like in your local fish club, like at their auction?
So there isn't any that are really all that close to me. The closest one is that Lehigh Valley. And I could, especially they've got I believe you're actually going to be there at their next
in May.
event. Yeah, in May. And, it's definitely one of those, I could do that. But I think it's almost that I start focusing on, let me make sure I have enough stock for that moment.
Right.
And I'm just not interested in doing that at this point. I enjoy breeding fish for the fun of it. I enjoy seeing like, hey man, look how many fish I made this time. And, it takes all that stress off of me, and it's a hobby for me. So,
and that's good. Every now and again, I wish it could just be a hobby, but it's not. And I enjoy the other part of it. I enjoy, building the fish room and tinkering with it and maintaining it and all that stuff. I enjoy, most of the business part of it. Not the death, not the loss, but, the other part. Yeah.
My camera's getting knocked around by my son, who decided to crawl under the you better come say hello, since you're going to crawl under here. And everybody knows. Just got out of the shower. Say hi.
Hi.
Are you all clean now, Ian? Did you wash all your parts?
Yeah.
Okay. I have one of those. I know.
Yeah, well, some days are better than others. If he wants to get online and play some video games with his friends, those days don't get as clean as the ones where it's like, nope, you're not doing that tonight. So, another question completely unrelated to fish. You often talk about how you're such a sexy man, and I completely understand that, as I am also a very sexy man myself.
I was saying that today, actually.
Yeah, and one of my nicknames in high school was actually Big Sexy. I might have given myself that nickname, but we're not going to talk about that. If it's true, it's true, right?
Right.
But did you have any nicknames growing up?
That's a really good question. So a very good friend of mine, who my sister babysat for him and his sister, who she's the middle one, and brother, the youngest one, she babysat. So we probably spent half our childhood together. But when she started to talk, she couldn't say Michael. She called me Mookie. So Mookie was my nickname for a little while, for a couple of years.
Gotcha. Yeah, I got to tell the story about how I got my nickname, because it is. I think you'll appreciate it. I was in high school at the time, and we had a student teacher who was coming into our classroom and was going to be doing her student teaching there. And I was looking around the room, and I was trying to, she decided to go around the room and find out everybody's name, and she wanted to know something about all the people. And so I was looking at my buddies and be like, dude, tell them your name's Big Sexy. Like, it'll be great. And of course, none of my friends would do it. So like, dude, no, it's just our teacher's in the back. We're going to get in trouble. And at that point, it was actually our teacher's daughter that was doing the student teaching. So they're like, nope, because he was tough. So it gets to my turn, and they're like, oh, what's your name? Tell me a little bit something about yourself. I said, oh, my name's Tim, but I'm better known as Big Sexy. And she's like, excuse me? I'm like, nothing. So that's, it kind of stuck around for a little while. At least had a few people call me that for a while. And I'm sure you can understand getting into trouble in life. It's that is all the questions I had as far as, looking at, just kind of wanted to talk. So if you guys have questions for either myself or Mike, just go ahead, throw some stuff out in those comments. I'll make sure we highlight them, because I can bring on and we'll try to answer any of the questions you guys have. Mike, obviously, if you don't watch his channel, Michael's Fish Room, Mike's probably got the biggest guppy dedicated channel on YouTube, as far as I know.
I don't know about that.
Do you think there's another channel out there? There's none that I can think of off the top of my head that is so dedicated to guppies as yours that's that big.
There's a lot of guppy channels, for sure.
There are a lot.
Yeah. Let's just say I have a big collection of guppies, a flower horn, and I'm pretty sexy. So.
Yeah, none of the other channels that do guppies are nearly as good looking.
No.
So,
sure.
Yeah. And then obviously, if you have other questions for me, I do keep a lot of different community tanks. I'm all about community fish and planted aquariums and that type of thing. And so like I said, I do. And for those of you guys who joined in late, I just want to say thank you again to my subscribers. I hit 1,000 subscribers today, which was a big deal for me. And so I was pretty excited about that. And we're planning on doing some big things moving forward here on the channel. So here's a question. So favorite fish to breed or fish you'd like to breed, and favorite part of the business. Maybe I'll answer because mostly you breed guppies and plecos. But the favorite fish I think I've enjoyed breeding so far is some rainbow fish. But I'll ask you, because you did mention how much you enjoy being in the business part aspect of the hobby. So for you, what do you think is your favorite part of the business?
I like when I ship someone fish and they leave a really nice testimonial or review. I really like that. That definitely warms the cockles of my heart. But I like kids in the hobby. So when someone says, "Oh, my 10-year-old and I watch all your videos," and and then I can sneak in "Oh, hi, Ian," or something like that, and then I get a message, "He heard his name," that kind of makes me feel good too.
Yeah, and I think this is probably a good answer too, right?
Oh yeah, I mean Keith's my brother from another mother, so he knows.
Yeah, if you guys haven't checked out KG Aquatics, he's got a small YouTube channel, but he also has a business where he sells some of the best, at least in my opinion. I know, Mike, you've talked about his food too that he sells there. With his, I actually have some right here. I'm going to pull it out to show you some Dr. Bassleer. This is a great food, and yeah, you guys can't barely see it, but there you go. Definitely a top-notch food for fish. And I don't care what kind of fish you keep; it's definitely a solid one. So I think,
available, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've really been happy with it, and I think that KG Aquatics is the only seller of that.
There are some other places that sell. I think they make flake food that's really good, but I think KG Aquatics is the only seller of flake food in the States. But Keith has the best prices. He has the best service. Everything you could want for your fish tank, he sells. All the hard goods, all the dry goods, all the botanicals.
Yeah, here's talking about the pleco caves that he has.
They're so awesome. You don't need to play any Barry White or leg candles. You put that cave in and boom, babies, like the next day.
Yeah, if you guys don't know what we're talking about, like there's pleco caves and then there's the ones that Keith sells. Oh man, Mike's gonna get his hands wet.
I gotta make sure there's no pleco in here though. Nope.
Yeah, I actually
think this thing looks.
Yeah. They're absolutely incredible. I actually did a video on my channel. If you guys want to check out some incredible pleco caves, you can check that out. After the live stream's done, I'll link that below. But they are definitely by far the most gorgeous pleco caves you can get. And especially for me, like I enjoy a tank that looks natural. And I've got plecos in here that breed. And, if I'm going to have a cave in here, I want it to look good. Yeah. So if you're looking for a good looking tank, absolutely, that is a great way to go.
Not only are they beautiful, but they're functional.
Oh, and Keith answered that question. There are some other people that do sell, but he's good looking too. So
not as good looking as you, but he's up there.
Well, not everybody's got this nice beard, and now I think Keith Keith's going to be at the Lehigh Valley Aquarium's fish swap too. I think in May, isn't that right?
Yeah, he's going to be there.
So if you guys are looking for, especially if you're in Pennsylvania, the East Coast Pennsylvania, or even into New Jersey. Definitely that's a great place to find some really good, those fish swaps. You find some really good looking fish there. I'm sure, Mike, you'll have some pretty good looking ones by that point too that you'll be bringing. And we can talk about this for a second too.
Yeah.
He's going to be at the Keystone Clash as well. You're going to this year, Mike? All right, nice. I was there last year. I'm excited about this year. I think that it sounds like they're putting a lot more work into it, trying to make it a much bigger show this year than it was even last year. And I thought it was great last year. I learned a lot had some great speakers. Like Gary Lang was out there speaking. Oddball Aquatics. I'm trying to remember what his name is. He was out there. He's got some of the best catfish.
I was just talking about him with one of my pleco breeders. Oh, I can't remember his name either.
Yeah, I don't know. If you look him up on Aquabit, it's Oddball Aquatics, but it'll come to me probably as soon as we end the live stream.
Right.
But definitely he's got some incredible catfish, and I learned a lot about keeping catfish. And then they had, some people talking about aquascaping and learning a little bit there. And then who else was speaking there? I'm trying to. Lucas Bretz was out there this last year speaking. They haven't said who's going. Yes, Eric Bodrock. Thank you.
Yes.
That's who it was. Eric Bodrock. It was out there speaking, but I don't think they've announced who the speakers are going to be yet this year. But I'm sure they're going to be fantastic again. And I think this year I'm going to put some fish into their little show that they do. So I haven't decided quite yet what I'm going to do. I may put in some of my Bosemani rainbow here. You can see swimming in the background. But I don't know for sure yet. Are you thinking about doing anything like that, Mike? Or are you just going to go and sell? Or what are you doing with Keystone Clash?
I did the show when it was smaller, maybe 4 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I did win first and second place in the guppy contest. But no, I probably won't. I'll probably just go there and sell. They asked me to go, and then a couple other people asked me to go, and then Keith and I talked about doing it, and so we're gonna do it and make it a business weekend.
All right, here's a question. Oh, that's not what I wanted. That one came up. Here we go. Have you ever had a stubborn pair of bristlenose plecos spawning wise? I have a pair of long fin super reds that just don't spawn consistently like all my other pairs.
So are they spawning at all?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. The other thing I think plecos this year, for a lot of, at least for me, I don't get them to spawn as much because my tanks are cooler. And I think that actually plays a part in there for me. If your tanks, plecos like a couple things, they like to eat. So you got to make sure you're feeding them well. If you're not feeding them enough, that could play a part into it. If they haven't started spawning at all, they may not be old enough. Because
ask that question. I find long fins have to be older than standard fin or short fin. And might be 3-month gap in between. Yeah, I would venture to guess they're still young. If you don't know how old they are, I would probably say they're probably still young. But what are you feeding them? Also, like Tim said, the quality and quantity of food has a lot to do with it, I find.
Yeah, I think food. I think food's probably the biggest one, and that water quality. Keeping, sometimes you'll find that if they stop breeding, and this is one of the things that I've done in the past. Do a big water change, and drop your water temperature actually, because I think plecos they tend to get a little bit more ornery when you kind of make them annoyed, and then you kind of see some of that breeding behavior a little bit more. I think that's probably the best way I can put that, at least in my experience. And I'm sure, Mike, you've probably bred more than I have as far as the plecos go, but I've definitely had several hundred go through my house.
So I find with plecos, especially if they're picky, if you have 2 or 3 caves, put 5 or 6 caves. Put them in different places facing different ways. You can try the lowering the water temperature, especially if there's a storm going on. If the barometric pressure drops, and this I've done purposely, it drops, change some water, and it simulates rain, and that's usually when to make babies.
Yeah, and hopefully, and it might just be wait a little while longer. They start doing that better. Yeah. So, kind of sticking with that. They're about 2 to 3 years old. She's feeding Northfin veggie pellets, Vestral, pleco ceramic tablets. I'm not sure what those are, and then auto water change system. So, you can try switching up.
He could try changing the scape. I would up the food quality. I don't know much about the Northfin veggie pellets, but I would go with like better tabs from Dr. Bassleer's. I don't know what kind of vegetables. Obviously, canned green beans are really good. Most vegetables are good, but you want to give them something with protein also if you want them to spawn. Ooh, that's a good question. If money was no issue, what's your ideal tank size and stock? Do I only get one if money's no issue?
Well, take it however you want, Mike.
So I would have probably a South American biotope as big as I could fit in a wall. Lots of angels and rams and tetras swimming. But also I'd want, like Corey has that 800-gallon tank, I just want it filled with mud guppies. Nothing but mud guppies and plants obviously, but just a gajillion guppies would be really cool.
Yeah, I was talking with another fish keeper just the other week about the fact that I don't know how big I actually want. The reality is I thought that a 29-gallon was going to be big enough until I got a 29, and I was like, oh, I need something bigger than that. And then I had a 55, and that's big enough until it wasn't. And now I've got multiple 75s, which I thought for sure, like, man, give me a 75-gallon because that you can keep a ton of different types of fish in there. And the guy I was talking to is Travis. He has a 300-gallon fish tank, and I kind of looked at that and I said, I don't know if I want that because, like, how do I take care of it? My arms are too short. I can't reach into it very far. So I don't know. For me, I think probably the biggest I would want to go is probably right around that 220 mark. Where you get that 2 foot from front to back. That way I can still reach in and hopefully reach the stuff I need to deal with. And then as far as what would I put in it? I don't know. I want to keep them all. So it's Travis and his 300-gallon, he says he needs a snorkel to get to the back of his tank. And he's not joking. Like he really does need a snorkel to get to the back of his tank. So I don't think I'd want one that big. It's awesome to look at. Like you mentioned Corey's 800-gallon. Man, that's a cool tank. I just don't think I'd want it. And I'm sure my wife would shut me down before I got that in the door anyways. So
it's funny because my wife, she would love to have more discus upstairs. And I said, okay, but I'm not getting discus unless, and anything smaller than a 125. And during COVID, I found a 125 on the side of the road that held water for 2 weeks outside. And I'm like, all right, let's plant some discus. She's like, nah, I don't want it. So I sold the tank, but that was her chance to get discus. 125 realistically for me is probably the biggest I would go right now. Maybe when I'm retired, I'll do something bigger, but
I was gonna say, well, is Taco full grown now?
He probably has some growing to do. He's bigger than my hand. He just tried to eat it through the acrylic. But no, he probably has a little bit of growing still to do, I think.
Because I could see him in a 125. It'd probably be. He'd probably look really good in it.
Boring. This thing's about 40. I think it's 39.5 gallons. It's plenty big for him.
Yeah.
And Hank over here is in a 20, and like when he gets excited, I get splashed. He'll splash me. But he's a little a-hole.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you still trying to move him?
Want to buy him?
I don't have a place to put him.
I mean, storm them with the rainbows. They'll be fine for a few minutes.
Yeah, I'm sure. Besides, I think he's out of my price range too.
Probably. He's a little spendy with them white eyes.
Yeah.
I think he's a she. I don't know. I mean, I would never turn her over and.
Yeah, you wouldn't do the whole venting thing. I
mean, the head is pretty small, which usually means a female. So I don't know. Now him, he's got a nice cock.
That is a nice one. He's nice and big.
Yeah. And my 10-year-old likes to come down and feed him snails. He'll go through all my tanks, get like this thing half like here with snails, and then just
Yeah, I'm sure that's entertaining for him, no doubt.
Oh yeah, and it helps keep my tanks cleaner, so that's good.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good idea. Maybe I need to figure out. And honestly, I have thought about getting, something bigger, just to, whether it's eat the snails, feed them, or, obviously like with breeding guppies, you get some that aren't always healthy. It's just the reality of fish keeping, or really anything that you breed. You get stuff with bent backs that it's not. You can't sell it. You really shouldn't even give it away.
Shouldn't breed it. Right.
Yeah. So you really should cull them, and that's probably the best way to do it, is to feed them to something that'll eat them.
That's it. So the way the mutt tank started was when guppies wouldn't breed true enough to sell, I just threw them in a tank. And then in a few months, I had really nice mutt guppies. But so bent backs, that's a good thing you brought up. Most bent backs are from the environment, right? So if the fish are getting enough nutrients and the water's clean, you won't have a problem.
No.
Every now and again, you get one that gets stuck in the birth canal or gets jacked up coming out, and then it's a bent back, and that usually goes, as soon as I see it, it goes right to one of those two.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, if you're breeding fish and you're seeing a lot of them have them, then you got a problem that's probably more than genetics. And I think that's a good point. And I think there's a lot of things in fish keeping that are just related to the water quality that people don't. And I think before with guppies, one of the things that I see a lot of people talk, and not as much as I used to, but I see people post like, "Oh, is this fin rot?" And really, it's just that the other guppies were nipping at the the fins. But fin rot's another one, man. Keep clean water, you're not going to have fin rot.
Right. For fin rot, clean water.
Yeah, it's a cure for most everything, really. So change your water and do what you have to do to keep it clean. So. All right. Well, I'm going to give everybody like a couple more minutes to ask any other questions they have, but I'm sure Mike's been yawning a couple times, and I'm sure he's about ready to get to bed.
I slept like poop last night, man. Oof.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, you don't use Melafix, huh, to cure those?
No, but I heard Pimafix is even better.
Oh, that's the one you got to use, the Pimafix?
Yeah, and if you have a beta, don't they have a beta fix now?
Oh, that probably cures everything. All right, listen, he's joking. Don't bother wasting that stuff. It is junk. It's the whatever those essential oils of the fish world. I probably just upset some people. I just said essential oils don't fix anything either, but but yeah, don't bother with those. They don't really do much of anything. And your best bet, if you think that's going to help, change some water.
Yeah, pretty much. One can't stand on social media when people just guess to help people. And I'm a big believer. If you don't know for sure and you haven't done it when you're offering advice to someone, don't offer advice.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll be honest, that's one of the things, like, I'm not good with sick fish. Partly, I don't bring fish into my fish room very often. I keep my own fish, and when I get them, I quarantine my fish. And so I don't get a lot of sickness in my tanks. And so if you're asking me, like, yeah, I keep healthy fish. If you're asking me to help you with like the disease you got, I'm not the best guy to do that. Even you've done a number of different videos for keeping guppies, and how you treat them. And I think recently I saw that you're actually doing a selling treatment now for Yeah. Now,
Calamari.
yes. Yeah, Calvin. You're selling treatment for that. Well, because you're importing fish all the time, you have lots of fish going through your system. You're much more likely to actually have to deal with diseases than I am, just because I breed them and then I sell them, and there's never any those sick fish that are really going to be coming into my system very often.
Right. I mean, Calamaris is big in guppies, and a lot of people, at least once a day is what's wrong with this, and it's clearly Calamaris. And so actually Philip Hamby, who was in the chat, I don't know if he's still here, he's the one that came up with that, and we decided to sell it to help people. So so I do bring in a lot of imported guppies, but the key, I mean, there's some tricks to the trade, right? You can't just flip a guppy and expect it to be healthy. It just doesn't work that way. So,
right.
You do have to take care of them and make sure they're good to go before you sell them. So that's what I do.
So here's a question for you. What fish have you had the longest as far as a single fish? Have you ever really had any of that? I mean, I'm trying to think, what was your old flower horn, and how long did you have that?
So he was chewy, and I think I only had him about 2 years. Then he got sick. So he got sick. I cured him, and he got sick again, and I couldn't cure him the second time a few months later. Currently, probably, taco now, but I don't keep fish like as a hobbyist. I make fish and buy fish to sell. I mean, I have some fish upstairs I've had a couple years, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of fish that I've kept for a long time. For one, mostly I do smaller community fish, and most smaller community fish, like I've got some zebra danios that are 4 years old, but that's about as long. Like they're not going to live much longer because that's about as long as they can live. Right. Zebra danios are especially, 4 or 5 years is you're doing pretty good. So, yeah, I don't have a lot of things that are certainly don't have anything that's been 8 years. But for goldfish, they can live 30 years. So when you have a fish that potentially has that much of a lifespan, and I don't know how long. How long can flower horns live? Do you know?
I don't. I mean, I know they can live 4 or 5 years easily. I don't know how long, but I mean, a lot of it has to do with their care. If they're in dirty water for a substantial amount of time, they're not going to live very long.
Yeah.
If they're fed crappy food, they're not going to live very long, right? It's all that stuff matters when it comes to fish, especially if they have a shorter lifespan.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really bad foods out there, that just they're junk. And if you're buying food off the shelf at Walmart for your fish, I don't know if there's any good fish. I'd have to go back and look. It's been a long time since I looked at Walmart's shelf for their food. Right. But my guess is there's probably none that are actually really good in there.
Right. Will they survive? Probably, but it won't help them, and it certainly won't make them live longer.
No.
And
the other thing,
you get really good food.
Yeah, and I think a variety of food too, because like I enjoy a hamburger, but if I eat hamburgers every meal all my life, like I'm going to miss an awful lot of nutrients that I need. And that's definitely going to be the same thing with, keeping fish. Like give them a variety because there's lots of different nutrients and lots of different food. We were talking about those plecos earlier. Well, man, there's tons of fresh food that you can give them.
Yeah.
And that's going to be helpful for them. And that's going to, not only is it going to keep them healthier, it's going to help them breed more too. So absolutely.
Yeah, variety is important for the nutrients, not for their taste, and not because they don't want the same food every day. They're fish; their brain is the size of a pinhead. So at least guppies. So they don't really care about that as long as they're eating. But yeah, the variety for the nutrients is very important.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mike, I appreciate you coming on, doing the live stream with me. Thank you guys for that. Hung out with us as long as you did. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Keith finally hit that subscribe button just recently for me, so I was pretty excited. And he's mentioned here his Bassleer foods again. Go check out his Dr. Bassleer foods. They are great. But I was excited to see. And Mike, I think you can hit that subscribe button too. I don't think you subscribed to my channel.
Really?
So maybe you have. I don't know.
Stand by. No, I haven't. Boom, subscribe.
There we go. I got another subscriber. All right. I'm on move.
Congratulations on 1,000 subscribers too. 1,001.
1,001. All right. Thank you, Mike. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye, everyone.